Hello! In this module and the next, we're going to be discussing Plato's Republic, his magnum opus, his biggest work. And in this module, we focused on justice in the city and justice in the soul. So we've already transitioned into talking about Plato as opposed to Socrates. And so Socrates in these dialogues is we can really think of as putting forward Plato's own views as opposed to being an idealization of his idolized teacher. In a sense, we can think of the Republic as making two very big claims. One is that justice is best in the soul and in the city, and the other is advancing and developing his theory of forms. So in this module, we're focused on that first topic, justice is best in the soul and in the city. In the second, we'll be learning more about the theory of forms and how that really fills out Plato's view about justice as being best in the soul and in the city. So Plato is going to tell us that justice is good. It's best in the soul and in the city, and it's helpful to have some understanding of what we mean by best here. So Plato distinguishes at the beginning of Book 2 between what he calls things that are good only for themselves. So those would be things like enjoying harmless pleasures. The pleasure doesn't have any further impact one way or the other after it's gone, but while it lasted, it was nice. Maybe sun on your skin, maybe, the feeling of warmth, that kind of thing. That might have later impacts. It might help you relax, and that could be beneficial, but it needn't. It might just be, oh, that was nice, moving on. Then there are things that Plato thinks we can call good only for their consequences. So these would be things like making money or physical training in his view. Money is not in and of itself valuable at all. It's what you can do with it. And so making money is valuable only as Plato's thinking about it, because it gets you money which you can then use to do things. And we might think that making money maybe is valuable for other reasons, but Plato's thinking about it it's a tool, and so making it is just making a tool, and it's only valuable because you can do things with it. Similarly, physical training is valuable because it promotes physical health, but in and of itself, it's not valuable. Again, some people might find physical training valuable for them as an activity in and of itself that they enjoy. That's fine, but that's not how Plato was thinking of it, and it's not so much what we say about it, but that we understand how Plato was thinking of it as an example of this kind of category. And then finally, there would be things that would be good for themselves and for their consequences. Examples of this for Plato would be things like knowing and seeing. He thinks that knowledge is valuable just for knowledge, but then also it's valuable because it's a reliable and stable base from which to act, to guide our action, and to produce successful action. So Plato wants to tell us that justice is good both for itself and its consequences. In fact, it's the highest value. It's what we should aim at the most. So if we're going to understand why he thinks that, we need to have some understanding of what justice is. And so in the first and second books of the Republic, a variety of definitions of justice are considered. The first one comes from a character named Polemarchus, who says, "It is just to give to each what is owed to him, and a friend owes something good to their friends, and to an enemy owes something bad." And so this is very similar to that Greek warrior code that we mentioned way back at the beginning. Treat your friends well, treat your enemies badly. And Socrates in the dialogue does his characteristic Socratic method and reduces Polemarchus to confusion and contradiction, because it turns out that Polemarchus agrees that justice is always doing what's good, which means it's not harming, which means that you wouldn't harm an enemy, and so this definition collapses in their discussion. The character Thrasymachus shows up. He gets very angry with Socrates. He says, "Oh, you're just doing your questioning thing. You have to tell us what you really think." And Socrates says, "Well, the character, maybe I will," but then Thrasymachus puts forward his own view about what justice is. And what is that? It's nothing other than what is advantageous for the stronger. And then Socrates does indeed go into the questioning mode, and again reduces Thrasymachus to confusion. We won't worry about the details of how that goes, and Thrasymachus leaves. But then at the beginning of Book 2, and at the end of Book 1, some of Socrates' friends, Glaucon and Adeimantus, say, "Look, Socrates, we agree that you defeated Thrasymachus and showed that he's not wise about justice, but we really want to know what justice is, and we're not really going to be satisfied with your defeat of his view of justice until you tell us what justice is." And then Glaucon poses a challenge in the shape of a third definition of justice. So this definition of justice, the idea is that individuals are capable of harming each other, and in lots of cases, one individual harms another. If I were to harm you for some reason, I might gain a little bit, but you would be harmed much more, and if you were to somehow if the situation were reversed, you might be able to gain something by harming me, but probably what you gain is less than the harm that's done to me. And so we're in this situation where each of us can gain a little bit, but we're each vulnerable a lot more to the harm that others can do to us. In that situation, you might think, well, this is not good. Let's have an agreement. Let's agree that neither of us is going to harm the other for these small gains, and in that way we'll be protected from the big losses that others can cause us. And that would be in both of our interests. So we make that agreement. And that is what Glaucon suggests justice is. It's this agreement that between individuals that they will not harm each other. And it's in each of their interests. But Glaucon says, if really we'd rather not, a given individual would rather not have to abide by such an agreement. What they would like is everyone else abides by that agreement so they're not harmed by others, but they can harm others and get the gains of violence, as small as those may be, but not be punished. And he imagines this, if you had a ring of invisibility, then you might be able to do this because no one would know who it was that was violent. And if you did have a ring of invisibility, according to the challenge Glaucon puts forward, then you would be you would engage in violent acts. So these are the challenges, and that's the challenge that Socrates is going to have to deal with through the rest of the Republic, and he also wants to explain why Thrasymachus' view of justice, although he sort of defeated it in Book 1, is really in the end the sort of very most confused view you could have about what justice might be. That in fact, that grasping for power is actually going to destroy your own soul and make you miserable. And we'll see that by the end of our second module on the Republic. So that's our setup for the discussion of justice, and in the next video we'll get deeper into what Plato thinks about what justice is and how that relates to Socrates' views about the relationship between wisdom and virtue.